cheer. Awesome. All right. Welcome.
How's it going?
I'm here with my man, Brendan MacHamer.
MacHamer, but he's close.
Is that how you say it?
Yeah. The H is silent. It's capitalized, but it's silent. It's a trick that we threw into my family just to
MacHamer?
fuck with everybody.
Is that right?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
but I've been
MacHamer.
not pronouncing it correctly for over a year.
Nobody does. Nobody ever does.
Well,
I don't ever correct anybody because at some point, I just dropped the bomb. People are like, wait a minute. It's really?
That's
how you
perfect timing.
pronounce it?
That's perfect timing.
There you go.
Good start.
It's MacHamer.
Well, not MacHamer. And I had Rick on the podcast, right? And he spoke at one of the men's meetings. And for so long, I thought it was Rick, but it's Rick Eric.
Yeah. That's hilarious.
So on the podcast, he's like, yeah, it's actually
Eric.
Yeah, so
that's too funny.
I'm 2 for 2.
Yeah, there you go. Well done, dude. Yeah, no, it's MacHamer. Yeah,
there you go.
Now you know why half my friends call me Bam. It's my initials, but it's because people can't pronounce my last name, so they're just like, I'm just gonna call him by this. And anybody that doesn't know me thinks that it's just like a sound effect, but
that's still kind of a hard one to remember.
MacHamer. Yeah, people won't remember it.
Yeah.
Like I guarantee next time you see me, you're not gonna be like, oh yeah, MacHamer.
No, I guarantee you, I will get it right.
Oh, will you?
Yeah, and I'm only gonna call you by your last name now.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I probably won't respond to that.
What's up, MacHamer?
Yeah.
Cool.
Right
well,
on.
Hey, welcome to the show. A minute and a half in.
Yeah.
The Johnny King Show. So this episode, I've got my buddy Brendan here, and we have a huge agenda to get to. I've got a long list of things that I really want to talk about.
Fantastic.
And if you're a consistent listener to the podcast, you know that I'm lying. And in fact, I have nothing prepared.
That's wonderful. Even better. I came with nothing.
Yeah.
I have no expectations.
That's right. And yet you have everything.
And yet I have all of it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
I've got all the answers that are just my opinions. We'll see how well that goes for whatever it is that you bring up.
Yeah. And so we've had so many good conversations. Why don't you tell the story about how we met?
Yeah, so I met,
touching story.
Absolutely. Johnny posted something online about his meeting of men, his group that he started here in Denver, and it really resonated with me only because I've done a whole lot of life coaching type of work and in my own programs that I've gone through online. I went through a program called Man Cave, which is put on by Preston Smiles and his coaches out of Venice Beach and several other areas around the world, Australia, etc. Different coaches from different areas, California, New York, whatever. But Johnny was preaching a lot of the same stuff that I had gone through with that program, and it just resonated with me. It was absolutely amazing. So I wanted to go check out a local event. One, because I resonated with that kind of information, but two, I was just trying to meet new and I don't want to say enlightened guys, but just people that are in the work that are trying to just better themselves, right? And the moment you start to have those kind of conversations, or you get attracted to that kind of a program or that kind of an event, you're in the right room. So I went. It was amazing, and I haven't stopped coming. I try to make it on a monthly basis.
I pitched the cattle drive meeting and
City Slickers.
Yeah, the City Slickers cattle drive. And Brendan and I just met him, and he's like, I'm in. I'm like, you don't even know me. He's like, I don't care. I'm in. I'm like, okay.
I was in. Yeah. No,
awesome.
I had never ridden a horse. I mean, I had ridden a pony, but then they took it around in a circle on a rope, and I had a helmet on and everything. Yeah. I was like 30. I wasn't allowed to do
30? You were 30?
30.
Oh, man. That's quite a birthday.
Yes, I was 33. It was last Thursday.
Yeah.
No. So I'd never been horseback riding, and we went on the event, and it was absolutely amazing. And when it was all said and done, they put me on the autopilot horse, remember?
Yeah.
And it was like, this is the safest horse we can put you on. This is like, it's like that old sturdy steed that has absolutely no temperament. And then maybe a minute and a half into the cattle drive, the thing stepped on a beehive and started bucking me. So I don't care how docile a horse I got. You step on a beehive and it's gonna piss that thing off. So.
You scared. I mean, the look on your face was pretty absolute fear.
I was terrified.
Yeah,
I was absolutely terrified.
But that's the whole point of the cattle drive.
Yeah, no, I stayed on the horse.
You stayed on the horse.
I wasn't dehorsed,
which not everyone did.
No, not everybody did. We won't name names. It's okay.
Yeah. What's up, Patrick?
No.
But what was great too was that you showed up in basically all white.
Yeah.
Like you were the good cowboy that was going to save the day.
Yeah. No, and you're right. I was somewhat in all white, but then when we got there, I don't know if you were in the room or in the shop, but I started trying on all their cowboy hats.
Yeah.
But then I started totally trying to bend the rims so it was turned into a taco hat. And the girl just finally is looking at me just okay, at some point you are going to have to buy one of those because you keep bending all the hats. Yeah. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
I was like, so how much is this one? She's like, that's our most expensive hat. It's $37 or something. I was like, damn.
Which is actually pretty inexpensive.
It was pretty inexpensive. Yeah, absolutely. For sure. Yeah. I've had more expensive cowboy hats before.
You have the ones that are all bedazzled.
Yeah, totally the bedazzled ones for sure.
Yeah. They have New York.
Some kind of icon.
Yeah.
Some big kind of,
New York Yankees on your cowboy hat.
Yeah, absolutely. Some kind of bandana sewn into it with them.
So trendy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's ferocious. Yeah.
So we made it through that weekend.
We made it through the weekend. But it was an awesome weekend.
Yeah. That was
a lot of because not only were we doing an event that broke everybody out of their comfort zones, it was fun. It brought us all together.
Yeah.
We had to work as a team.
Yep.
But then outside of that, we got down to some brass tacks of really tapping into some stuff, right?
Yeah.
Working on this, talking about the past, how you handle the past and your present.
Yeah.
Opening up, and then how do you take that momentum and move into the future?
It was a short weekend for, we only touched the surface, and a lot of that you've probably only done through all the other work you had done. But for me, it was kind of a beta test. It was my very first event last year with guys, and just seeing if guys would show up and would they apply themselves and everything else, which was pretty fun. Mm-hmm. And then you missed out on the mountainous adventure.
I don't do snow. I'll do it, but just you guys were laying in it, living in it, breathing in it, iglooing, and I don't igloo.
13,500 feet.
Yeah, I'll ski. I'll do that stuff. But then I want to stay and sleep somewhere warm.
Yeah, it was warm, dude.
Sure, I hear you, especially because you guys were making your own fire. So at some point there was fire, but there was a whole lot of work that went to it.
This is true.
I either want matches or I just want to flip a switch. But, there's a lot of things that go into that. So
if you're a guy listening to this episode or watching the video here that we're recording, and you care to go on some adventures, check out my website, because there's definitely some other adventures that I'll be playing as soon as the coronavirus recedes.
Absolutely.
Hopefully in the next 2 years.
Yeah. I know the one event I went on was an absolute blast in so many ways.
It was fun.
Mm-hmm.
Now talk about what craziness we're up to, because I will tell you, a lot of guys, not to toot my own horn, I just have a lot of stuff going on. I've got my men's meetings every single month. I've got coaching one-on-one clients. I've got my mastermind, my podcast. I'm currently writing a book. People would come up to me hey, we want to do some type of volunteer charity work. I'm like, love it. Mm-hmm. I don't have the bandwidth. I'm like, I already feel like I'm somewhat doing my own volunteer charity work with providing free events for men. But it was always kind of sitting in the back of my head. And then we had coffee, and I was like, man, will you do this? And you've run with it, man. You've stepped up majorly in a leadership role.
No, I appreciate that.
Tell people who are listening about what we're up to.
Yeah. So the funny thing about that is that I had actually started to already have those conversations, right? And you were the fire in my ass to actually get it going, I guess you could say, right? The beautiful thing is that back in November, I guess you could almost say that I went through, I would say like a mini midlife crisis. Right.
Yeah.
For about 5 or 6 months there, where I was just a lot of my old shit was coming up. Can I cuss on this?
Start over.
Oh God.
Damn it.
It's just me being me. Just anyway.
Of course.
Cool. But a lot of my old habits.
You probably just offended my one listener. Yeah. You son of a bitch.
Totally turn it off. Like, man, I'm out. This guy's an asshole.
Yeah, I'm out. Yeah.
I can't take it.
Yeah. Sorry, Dad. Yeah. My one listener.
My God. My ears.
Yeah.
No. But a lot of my old shit had kind of come up back in June of a year ago. Yeah. I had gotten to a place where I'd done all of this work, and it's actually like right around when I first started coming to the group. I just had a whole bunch of old stuff come up for me. And it's like I had healed all this stuff. I had, done all of this, and I was telling myself like I've crucified my ego. I'm good, this, that, and the other. And anytime that you ever hear somebody say, "Oh yeah, I crucified my ego," or "I crucified my ego a long time ago," they're lying to you because you can't crucify your ego. Your ego will always be there. It's just a matter of how you keep it in check.
It's like going out on dates and certain women be like, "I'm a really good Christian." Within like 10 minutes of meeting them, I'm like,
No.
okay.
like I didn't ask that. And I don't need you to volunteer that. Like I'm sure I would see it through your actions, but it sounds like you're trying to prove yourself, and this isn't a job.
Yeah, oftentimes it's not been the case, but that's neither here nor there. Right. Anyways, proceed.
Yeah, no. But a lot of old stuff had come up for me, and I really had to start going through my own purging, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And all of that kind of stuff. But yeah, it was right around the time that I met, that I had met you. And so I started going through all of this stuff, but I would say that it lasted for about 5 or 6 months. Up until that point in June, like I had been very involved in different things that I was doing, whether it was Toastmasters or I had started a Bible study, and I had some visions of where I was going to take the people in that Bible study, what we were going to do, and whatever else. Anyway, certain things will either work out or they won't work out because they were always destined to. Right. These were learning experiences to take you to the next level of what it is you're trying to do. Anyway, coming out of my season, I started thinking to myself, wait a minute. And I'm a Christian individual. I'm not the perfect Christian.
No,
you know me, right? Like
you walk on water.
Right. But it was a place where I had a season where it was always me asking God, what are you going to do for me? What are you going to, when are you going to break me out of this? Like I've been dealing with this type of shit for years and years now. Like when are you going to break me out of it? And finally, I just had this resonating response of, what have you done for me? Like. Not in like a selfish way, but just more of like a challenging way of, I put you on this earth to give of yourself in some way. What does that look like, and what are you going to do with it? And so during that time in November, I contacted a girl who is a mutual friend through a friend of mine, Jordan Lewis, who runs Denver Serve, which is an organization here in Denver. And then November and December timeframe, I went to 2 or 3 events that they put on. But what I loved was just what it is that they had created. It's a group of girls who have partnered and created a nonprofit organization, and they have partnered with a whole bunch of nonprofit organizations around the city. Yep. And they've pretty much created like a club in their own way, but in terms of like memberships of plugging different girls into volunteer opportunities at these different places, right? They get creative with some of these things. And the biggest thing that's happening is not only are they giving back to the community, at the same time, they're also building friendships among each other. Right? And it was absolutely amazing to watch. And I started thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, well, I'm involved in Johnny's men's group on a monthly basis. And I've seen what one event that we went to outside of that did in terms of bonding men together, right? And so all of these guys have a bond that are going to these meetings. And then I'm involved in other men's groups around town, whether it's book club throughout Mbaka and everything he's doing. And I started going to that like October, November timeframe as well. And that went from 6 guys to like 30 something by January, February, right before the pandemic. So either way, but what I was seeing in all of these different organizations and all these different groups that you guys have is that even though everybody has their own brand, everybody has their own passion, their own purpose, no matter what, the end goal was always the same, right? Bettering men in terms of their character. Service. The leaders that were in charge of that were doing the exact same thing in their own flavor. But the biggest thing is that even though it was different guys showing up to these events, it was the same brand of guy. Guys who are looking to build their character, guys who are looking to dig deep and start doing that in their work, but guys who are looking for community and were looking to give back. And so I had started talking to Jordan and that whole group. I know this is a long-winded answer, but I had started talking to Jordan and that whole group, and they were just like, we would love for there to be a men's group, right? Yeah. Because the men that we get at our get-togethers are usually significant others. And don't get me wrong, these guys are volunteering just like everybody else. They're doing a great job. But again, it's only if they are a boyfriend or a husband or a fiance of one of the girls that's already a part of this great group. And so I started looking at what it is that they had built, and it's really, really impressive. And I started to say to myself, wait a minute. I've got all of these different groups that I'm a part of, whether, in some form of life coaching or another, but in terms of working with men and building our character, what a great opportunity to give people another outlet in terms of social interaction among all of these different groups.
Right.
And so I went to you, I went to Adam, I went to Sean Forbes and Cameron. Cameron's wife is actually in Denver, sir, right? And we formed a leadership group, and we started doing stuff back in March. And since then, we literally met on March the 7th, and then by March 11th, they shut down the NBA. And then by March 12th, that was the sign that everything was going to hell in a handbasket, and they shut everything down. So at that point, we had just gotten started, and then all of a sudden, it's like we can't do anything.
Right.
So it's like, well, wait a minute. Yes, we can. This is just an obstacle. Just like anything in life, it's an obstacle. What do you do with those during tough times?
Right.
And here we are, 2 months later almost, and we had an event that we posted out there in terms of handing out masks to the public for free in front of a few grocery stores around Denver, and it was an absolute hit. These things flew out, and people were so appreciative. And we're looking forward to our next event. For sure. Yeah,
I think it's pretty cool. So for those of you that might be listening that are in Denver, whether you're male or female, if you want to get plugged in, definitely reach out to me or to Brendan, and we'll plug you in.
Absolutely. Yeah, you don't have to just be a guy, right? You can be a girl, and we can get you connected with Jordan Lewis and that whole group up on the Denver service side.
Yeah. Question for you.
Yes.
What if a woman wants to join one of our groups?
We are trying to keep it as exclusive as we can, just as a men's channel. The women do have their own channel, but I mean, it's not a bad thing, because I have a feeling that over time there will be fundraisers and things that they already put on that are great, that we're all going to collaborate in. Right. And we're going to have events that are co-ed as is. I mean, there isn't going to be a huge discrimination, but I think, especially to start, we really want to, we're trying to attract a certain type of individual, right? We're trying to attract and give an avenue for men to escape to, that they can grow and almost be vulnerable as men, but build that camaraderie while also giving back to the community as well. Right. We don't want them, and I'm just going to be brutally honest with it, right? Especially because I'm a single dude, I'm speaking to this. I don't want to attract guys to events simply because there's beautiful girls that are also doing this. Yes, we will have those opportunities. They're fantastic girls, but I want them to be coming to some of the events for the right causes. Right. That's just my thoughts.
Well, and I ask you selfishly only because I wanted to see your answer.
Yeah.
Because I get shit all the time on my Facebook ads, for my men's meetings. Women saying this is such bullshit. This is sexist. Just because we have boobs, can we not show up? Can we not contribute? What is this about a little boys club? All this stuff. And I'm like, I didn't realize I'd get so much hate from men and women on my ads for guys getting together to level up.
Right.
And so my thought is like, I don't think it would be to your point, far-fetched for women to not be able to understand that when they're around, it's a little bit harder for men to be totally focused.
Right.
It's like let's do a women's event only, and you can bring your children, but we're not going to provide childcare, and then try to expect them to stay paying attention to what's going on. It's the same way sometimes I think when women are there, it just men change, for better or for worse.
One of the big things that I think about when you make that comment, right? Like when I'm referring to like our event and the volunteer type of stuff, I just want to start. I want to attract the right guys for the right reasons, the ones that really want to give back to the community. Right. Because again, we're looking to get a men's type of following that we can then plug into these different organizations, whether it's the rescue mission or different stuff. Because there's, there are some different, things that are a little they're a little bit more rough, I guess you could say, to where the girls aren't volunteering at them as much because they're tough to do, whereas a guy would fit right in. And so I'm just trying not to deviate from just getting this up and running and started for all the right reasons. When I hear what you're talking about when it comes to folks giving bad feedback like that for your events, right? A few things come to mind. One, you're never going to make everybody happy.
No.
You know, if you're somebody who's constantly people pleasing, and I know you're not, I'm just saying in general, right, to the conversation. Like, if you're somebody who's constantly people pleasing and you're trying to accommodate everybody, you're not doing it for the right reasons, right? You will attract the people that you want to attract for the right reasons, for your cause, your passion, your purpose. And not everybody's going to resonate with that. And if they got a problem, well, that's fucking great. You never asked for their opinion in the first place. Just stay the course. Let them, you know.
Right.
The other thing that really stands out to me, because I've seen the same thing, but I haven't seen it in a negative way, but I've seen the same thing for Adam Baca's book club, where girls are just like, oh my God, what a great event. Can we come to that as well? We'd love to. Nothing wrong with that. It's awesome that they ask and that they'd like to be a part of it, because it is powerful. But I think one of the biggest key things here in both groups, and it's not that we don't want to partner with women in terms of different events or different clubs or anything like that. When it comes to the type of stuff that we're going after in these events and the type of impacts that you are trying to have in your meetings and in your events, you are trying to present and supply a safe space that men can walk into, sit down, and all of the shit we carry as men that we don't share, you can let it out. And the moment that you start to invite women from, and folks from the opposite sex into the room, that guard stays up. And it takes away from the power of the event itself, because more than anything, especially with men, right, we're raised in a society where you are taught, like, stiffen your upper lip, boys don't cry, this, that, and the other, blah, 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 blah. And so more times than not, especially with men and our masculinity, any kind of traumas, anything that happens to us in life, any kind of hardships, we take that, we stuff it deep down, and then you don't talk about it. Other things, stuff it deep down. And so more times than not, what we get is adult males who are suffering from all kinds of psychological bullshit that they've never actually handled. Right. And then on top of that, you have the stresses of life, and you have the stresses of having to be a provider and a rock for your family, while at the same time, you're still suffering internally. Right. And that's what's so great about the events that you guys have created, because without those, like, the beautiful thing in watching them is once you start an event, you have a guest speaker, it starts to touch on topics that most guys, especially if they're brand new, it's already going on in here. They just have never been in a room where people are talking about. Right. And they're real hesitant because they don't know people around them. They're real hesitant to talk about anything. But then all of a sudden, the guy in the row in front of them brings something up, and it's just like, oh my God, I go through that too.
Which is the one of the biggest common feedback, remarks that I get from most guys who are new to the group, is is an aha moment that, like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize there were other guys out there feeling the same way that I feel. And I think that's surprising, probably to well, and I don't want to speak in terms of, and nor could I for all women, but I think women do a great job of creating community. They communicate so much more effectively than guys do, especially amongst each other. Right? Absolutely. And there is that sense of ego amongst guys that we don't want to show, because we don't want other guys to lose respect for us. And so we attempt to at least put off that we got all our shit together. Right. Absolutely. And because men are, like, in the same way that they're, let's say, a lot more visually impacted by the opposite sex, more so than the opposite sex is towards us. It's not to say that our physical outward appearance isn't important to women,
Right.
but it doesn't draw as much importance as it does for men.
Mm-hmm.
Men still do that though with other men,
Mm-hmm.
as we judge and kind of put each other into a hierarchy when we walk into a group. So walking into a group of 40, 50 other men, like at my meetings, it can be freaking intimidating.
Oh, absolutely.
But then I work to like try to break down the
100%.
walls so that they realize, oh, you and I are sitting here. We're going through actually a ton of the same stuff. If we actually could just be vulnerable enough,
totally,
to share it, right?
Totally, absolutely. And I love the word vulnerable and the word vulnerability, because even my old me, right? Like you hear the word like vulnerable or vulnerability, and you immediately think pussy, right? Like come on, dude, right?
Yeah.
And if you think about
in a weak way,
yes, absolutely, in a weak masculine way, right? And more than anything, what I see is if you really compare it and contrast it to your own friendships that maybe you've had before you attend a meeting like this with your own best friends or whatever else. At least for me, I can only speak for me. I don't want to speak for most guys, but I know that I see it plenty, right? Is we're all wearing masks. Yeah. And your retreat in terms of masculinity is with your boys out on a golf course or in a bar or at a sporting event where you're drinking and you're doing this and you're doing that, and that's the way you release. Yeah. But in a lot of cases, you're really not talking about your shit. Mm-hmm. And the funny thing is I don't care who you are, what you're about, or this, that, and the other. I don't think that there's anything wrong with being able to talk about your shit, because once you start to deal with this, you start to heal this. Once you start to heal this, then you're able to provide a whole nother level of human being in every, the only way I know how to put it is just a king-centered way for either your queen or your future girl or your current or all of your relationships, friendships, relationships. You're a better person. You're a better man. Right. You're a stronger man. Right. It's actually, to me, because of the work that I've done over time, and to me, it's almost weaker not to face your own shit. Oh, sure. Because no matter what, you're going to wake up in the morning, you're going to look at yourself in the mirror, and those same demons are going to be staring you in the face until you actually go and deal with it.
Yeah. It's easy for you or I to say that only because in some regards we're on the other side of healing. Yeah. But when you're looking at it as, a 14,000 foot, mountain you're about to start walking up, it can be very intimidating. Understandably. Absolutely. But I think you also bring up a very interesting point because, Brene Brown brings up vulnerability. She also talks a lot about shame. Totally. And I know there's a lot of shame in men's lives. And I think, as she mentions, like the way that you heal shame is to bring it out, is to speak it. Yep. Whatever you're ashamed of, because shame only multiplies and grows in areas of secrecy. Mm-hmm. And so men who keep that shame inside and don't talk about it, it continues to fester and to grow, right? So that's why it's just important to have these type of conversations, either one-on-one or in bigger group settings and everything else, or even just through like what you're doing, volunteering, and yet we're connecting as men, and we're also talking about like, oh man, like this is what I'm going through, and not they're just connection amongst like-minded men, right?
Yep, absolutely. And you bring something up and it kind of comes to mind, and no matter what group I'm in or what, whatever it is that I start or anything like this, the program that I was in, Man Cave, had such a big impact on me that I'll always rep it. I'll always talk about all of the positives that I really got from Preston Smiles and all of his coaches, Brendan Durrell and all of those guys. Jetty Azuma, just fantastic people. If you're listening and you ever get a chance to check them out, Man Cave. One of the biggest things that we learn in the program early on is just the concept of the fact that we are the only species in existence that does not basically, we don't shake off trauma. If you think or you watch any kind of like Discovery Channel type of video or anything like that, an animal that escapes being, eaten alive or killed, if they escape, their body literally starts to shake and shiver and go through something. It's because their parasympathetic nervous system immediately kicks in and they're actually shaking off the trauma. Mm-hmm. Human beings don't do that. Mm-hmm. We take it in, we stuff it deep down inside, and it just keeps building and building and building. There's aspects of that program that spark your parasympathetic nervous system to work on that and get through it. And one of the big ways to do it is simply by sharing. Mm-hmm. And that's part of why even in an hour and a half to 2 hour time frame in your groups, there's so much power in it, because men walk in not knowing each other, intimidated, because I've seen over 100 guys show up at your events before, intimidated, not knowing what the hell is going on, this, that, and the other. But by the end of the program, we've broken up into different groups. Everybody actually has so much more in common than they actually thought, besides dick, right? And all of the problems that we're dealing with. And you talk about things that you don't even talk about with your closest friends.
Right.
And you almost walk out feeling closer to the guys that you just were in an event with.
Yeah.
Than some of your closest friends that you've had for decades.
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
And it happens within an hour and a half to 2 hours.
Yeah.
So I mean that's just 2 hours.
Yeah.
So now it's no wonder to me why so many of the guys from your original City Slickers event, where we all went horseback riding, for the cattle drive, are still friends to this day.
Yeah.
And still continue to come to your event. It's because in a small day and a half, 2 week or 2 day event, we went there. We all shared something that now we share as a group that nobody else can really touch, because and it's powerful.
Well, it is the power of vulnerability, and I think vulnerability is that people don't tend to realize it, but it's like the greater vulnerability that you have within either a platonic or an intimate relationship, the deeper it's going to be.
Totally.
It's just, we're not, especially as guys, we're not educated or trained, if you will, programmed to go there, right?
Correct.
We're trained the exact opposite.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So.
And so much of the way that we're programmed is just setting us up with different masks.
Yeah.
How many different masks do you wear? Right? Your success mask, your romantic mask, your friendability mask, your image mask,
Right.
Are you dressing up like in a three-piece suit, like genuinely, or is it a mask to show the world that I'm successful? Right. And it's what is that internal balance? And it's a matter of, anybody can look good in a suit. It's, do you actually have your shit together? Right. And that's just like an example, right? Because I mean, I work in the financial industry, so I see all types of masks in the financial industry. Everybody looks successful, but it's a select few men that actually dress, but actually are the part internal. The other half of it is, while they're helping everybody else out in the financial industry in terms of retirement and everything else, their entire status to them, their entire being to them is based on their success.
Right.
How much did I bring in this year?
Right.
How much am I worth? Worth of a man is way more.
Well, let's talk about that. What do you feel like is, for those few men, what do you think it is beyond the three-piece suit and the pocket square that actually makes a man a king, if you will, or a leader, or is congruent?
Absolutely. So to me, it's just somebody. It's plain and simple. He doesn't have to have everything here, but to me, he has to be somebody who is truly, all bullshit aside, showing up authentically with who he is, what he's about, and on a mission to either discover his passion and his purpose, or in his passion and his purpose of why the hell he's here, and being on that plane.
Right.
Plain and simple. Is he going to do it perfectly? No. But you know what? It's just like working out. You're not going to be ripped and shredded the first fucking day you go into the gym.
Right.
But you keep working on it. You keep building on it. But you show up authentically to work out.
Right.
You show up authentically to work on yourself. And guess what? The more that you do that, you start to realize it's not about this. It's about, what am I doing for this?
Right.
What is around me? What kind of significance am I supplying to the world around me? What am I giving back? Back to others that come into contact with. Right. Because some people will be around you a lot because they are a part of your inner circle. Most people will only have very brief interactions with you ever in life. What kind of impact do you make on them during that time? Right.
But using the analogy of working out is interesting because for you to really become strong, to really grow in the gym, you know, you have to be willing to get to the point where you fail, which is physically extremely uncomfortable. Not to mention, it requires a ton of like commitment and you know, serious reasons for why you want to do that, to show up day in and day out, to more or less push yourself to failure, to where you otherwise you're not pushing yourself enough. And I having started gyms and had, you know, a lot of experience with women for 5 years while I owned those gyms in St. Louis, I would come across a fair amount of them who did not want to sweat. No, I don't want to sweat because I don't want to redo my makeup. I don't have to take a shower. I'm like, well, what are you here for? You know? And then they'd be also frustrated that they're not achieving their goals. You know? And I'm sure those guys, you know, don't get me wrong, I just had a majority of Midwestern women in my gyms. And I think it's that sort of thing, which is how I often say, how you do anything is how you do everything. And if you're not willing to step into that area of failure, emotionally or in work or in your relationships, then you're just not going to grow as much as you'd like to. You know, and I think that's just the thing. Is I feel like that's the calling upon myself, probably upon you as well, upon men in general, is that we are getting called upon to face our shit. Because not only are we dealing with our own shit, but it's the byproduct of generational passing of the torch, if you will,
100%.
of shitty ego, of generational shame, of just not showing up, right? Being absent fathers, being workaholics, doing all those things, and then also being abusers of substances, just because every previous generation, I'm saying, I'm using a very wide brush stroke on this. Most men have not been willing, nor do they probably have the tools or the time to really go in deep. I think this is the first generation where we have time, we have the tools, we have the right environment, you know, like we have a responsibility to either handle our shit or you're selfishly just going to pass it forward to the next generation and hope that they pick up, you know, or let's say put out the torch so they don't have to keep passing it.
100%.
Right.
Absolutely. And I think you bring up a great point. It's something with this generation, call it, it's something, you know, it's something in the water.
Yeah.
But there is something that's happening over time for men across the world that or just people across the world. There's an awakening that is happening, right? And people are starting to tap into this, right? If you really think about it, not until the last few decades have the Tony Robbins and the Jim Rohns and the Les Browns, right? And now the Lewis Houses and the Hughes, the Preston Smiles, and all of these types of movements really started to come up, but really start to take off. I mean, it's becoming a thing, and that's because more and more and more people are starting to, I call it, unplugging from the matrix. We're starting to wake up, and we're starting to tap into who it is we were ultimately meant to be for a reason. And it's not pretty work. It's not fun, right? the journey that you go on and the end product that is never an end product because it always continues to get better is far from anything you could have ever expected originally before you had started to tap into something different.
Well, using that thought too, what I see is that a lot of people are now, quote unquote, taking the blue pill or the red pill, whichever one it was.
Yeah.
Which one was it?
I think it was red pill.
The pink pill.
Yeah, sure.
The rainbow pill.
Yeah, it was. What would red and blue give you? The purple pill?
The purple pill.
Yeah, the purple pill, the one that's right in between
middle,
there, but it's going to give you whatever pill you were actually supposed to take.
Yeah, the one that's
the purple
right behind Morpheus.
Yeah.
No, that it's like there are a lot of people that I feel like have, you know, are quote unquote awoke, and yet that's as far as they've gotten. It's like being awoke to, okay, now I can actually see the matrix, right? Or I don't see the matrix, but I am aware of it. I'm no longer caught in this dream. But then I'm actually really, really scared. And you see the character that Keanu Reeves plays, Neo, actually go through that where he's like, I'm not the one. You all think I am, but it takes that whole story for him to actually start to believe in himself, right? But I do feel like there's a lot of people who took the pill, and they can see on social media, and they see all the positive, affirmations and all the the rah-rah stuff, like better yourself and everything's, and yet I also see, you can see it right now with coronavirus. In mass, people are more unhappy than they've ever been. They're more addicted or abusing substances, or domestic abuse has gone up, suicides have gone up. There's in mass more people are hurting than probably ever in recorded human history.
100%.
So that's the issue. Is even though we might take the pill, there's still fear to actually do the work.
100%.
Right. So how do you actually get guys and women too, of course, but we're just talking more about the work that we're doing with men. How do you get them to actually step up to the plate and the calling to, I don't know, it's kind of a rhetorical question. Maybe it's a tough one to answer, but
yeah, no, to me,
that's what I'm up against.
I mean, to me, it's this simple. Don't ever quit.
Yeah.
Right. You brought up a great point about failure earlier. And a few things came up, but I always think of, anybody that's done a lot of the work, right? You hear things and quotes like Thomas Edison, right? Invented the light bulb, ultimately electricity. We wouldn't have anything that we have right now or be able to do any of this without Edison. Probably the greatest inventor of our lifetime,
right?
With what it is that came to. He was asked in an interview once. The interviewer literally said, Thomas Edison, you failed 1,032 times. Like, how did you not quit? And it's a mindset. His response was, I didn't fail 1,032 times. I just figured out 1,032 different ways not to create a light bulb.
Right.
It's all a mindset.
Right.
So there are different mindsets that's going into this pandemic and into this quarantine. There are very limited mindsets that are complete fear. And, if we had approached if we didn't have the folks that we do leading Men's Denver Serve, the volunteer group, we would have quickly gone into this quarantine and it just would have died. Right. Instead, we look at it in terms of, okay, here's a phenomenal obstacle, and we're going to have to do the same thing on Saturday when we have our meeting, right? But here's a phenomenal obstacle. We have limitations in terms of what we can do, but how can we get creative to continue to still spread value and try to create a vessel for guys to tap into? Right? It's all a mindset, and it's a matter of positive affirmations and really starting to put that out there. But to answer your question, I think the biggest thing is one, you don't quit anything that you're doing because you're doing all of the right stuff. You just have to keep doing it because you have to see what will work and what won't work.
Right.
But what I will tell you, and you know this because you've seen your own buddy Lewis do this, you've seen, Preston, I've seen Preston do this, and it grows over time, right? Keep giving and putting these spaces out there, because there are plenty of men who have a calling to get into it. And I'm saying men, like women need the same thing. Brene Brown is a perfect example of it, but they need more of these types of women, right? These powerhouses, and they're out there. Preston's wife, Alexi, is one of them. I mean, these women are out there, but it's a matter of continue to create space for these things, and then let God, Christ, Buddha, Krishna, Allah, whatever source is around this universe, there's something bigger and better than ourselves. Let it continue to help mold what that's going to be, and it will mold into the ultimate version of what it's supposed to be, of what you were destined to be. But it never will come to fruition if you ever quit, right? And so I would say just let it continue to grow the way that it's supposed to grow and see what it turns into. You're already creating the space. Continue to allow that space to be there, because that is what continues to keep people in there. Because as you know, once you get people at your events, you're going to live and learn and figure out what works and what doesn't work.
Right.
But it's then going to be word of mouth.
Right.
And more people are going to keep coming.
Right.
And then you swivel, you change, you help it to grow. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And as you know, nothing grows without failure.
Right.
You don't get it right the first time.
Right.
If you got it right the first time, you'd be overwhelmed. Right. You just got to keep going. Right. And I mean, Jordan Lewis even said the same thing with Denver Serve, right? Whether it's 70 guys or 6, Doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that there's more than one person being you at your event is a huge success.
Yeah.
Keep doing it.
Right.
And it's going to go through ebbs and flows.
Right.
Same thing with meeting events. Same thing with book club.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's half of the reason why I selected you guys in the first place. Right. It's just there's a mindset that's there.
Mm-hmm.
Whether there's 30 guys that shows up to book club or there's 6 guys that show up to book club, Adam is constantly in a place of just positivity and putting that out there. Okay, fantastic. How can we get more people?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Things have fallen off. Sounds like, just because of pandemic, whatever else, invite your other guys.
Yeah.
Right. And it's amazing. And it's going to come in waves because everybody is going to go through their ebbs and flows of their own life. Right. Right. And it's how everybody else handles.
Right.
It's the same thing with meeting women. You could have just let it die during the quarantine because yours is normally a meetup where people literally go to the auto shop and get into a room.
Yeah.
And instead you pivoted in a positive way.
Right.
And you're still getting a great turnout on a monthly basis with speakers. Mm-hmm. It's phenomenal. Mm-hmm. So just don't quit.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's good to know. And I want those of us that are listening to take that to heart. Because I think it's just one of those things that at the end of the day, if you just keep going, but it also backs into the great importance of having a vision. If you don't have a vision of what you're aiming for, then you won't have the drive.
100%.
You won't have the wind underneath my wings.
Yes, there you go. The wind beneath my wings. Yeah. Dean Gracioso in his Millionaire Mindset book said it best. Without some kind of purpose or some kind of end goal in mind, maybe you don't have it figured out, but you at least know that you want to get to a certain place, but you start to ask yourself why. Really why? And trying to truly get to know who is Johnny, who is Brendan, who is Greg, who is Gary, who is this? Like, who the fuck am I? Unless you truly can start to tap into that. Any action that you take, you're just a Ferrari going 100 miles an hour in a straight line without a steering wheel. What is your destination? Because at certain times, not only do you need to be taking action, you need to be taking calculated action. What is that? Not only is it going 100 miles an hour and taking action in one direction, you need to know when to slow down. You need to know when to pivot. You need to know when maybe you've hit a wall and you need to alter course a little bit. Yeah. And it's all part of the process. Yeah. And you can't do that without truly understanding what ultimately you'd like your end goal to be. What is your why? It's passive. Right. And when you can get to the bottom of that, and you understand your one thing, then you're going in the right direction. Yeah, absolutely. Well, in the last remaining 30 seconds, my last and final question is LeBron James or Michael Jordan? Michael Jordan. Plain and simple. Michael Jordan was a killer. Michael Jordan had a mindset that said, I'm not losing. And he would then announce it to the world. He would literally egg you on to piss him off because the more you pissed him off, the better he played. Yeah. So he would actually go out there almost psychologically, not just with his own basketball game, but just psychologically picking fights in the best way possible to get you to react, because the moment that you react, now you've crossed his line and he's going to try to. But he's always looking for that win. LeBron, phenomenal player, will never. I mean, it's not too often that you get a player like him. Right. He is phenomenal. Right. One of the greatest that has ever played. But the difference between LeBron and Michael is Michael's one thing in goal and mindset was win. It wasn't basketball. It was win. Competition. He's the same way on a golf course. He's the same way in a card game. Do you think that's Kobe was the same way? Steeped in insecurity, though? I don't know that it in some cases it can be, but I don't know if it was necessarily an insecurity in Michael Jordan more than anything. He was raised where he was competing with his brothers and sisters. for the affection of his father, or for just success in anything, whether it was school, whether, he gained every inch that he ever got.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's, to me, the difference. LeBron, and I'm not saying that Michael Jordan wasn't born with a phenomenal talent. He was, right? But even with his own size, he got cut from his own high school basketball team. LeBron has always been, from the age of 13 or 14 years old, a freak of nature who was always going to be the next best thing. LeBron went into the league at 17 or 18 with shoe deals. Michael Jordan invented the shoe deal. He had to earn everything to get the shoe deal.
Yeah.
Air Jordan wasn't shit without Michael Jordan's winning mentality in basketball game. He had to prove himself. Right. He built his own brand.
Right. That was 30 seconds. Give or take. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. One on that, and we didn't even begin to talk about women.
No.
Part two.
Part two.
Part deux.
Yeah, part deux. Anytime I think of that, I think of, what do you call it, with Charlie Sheen. What's the movie?
I don't know. It's Hot Shots.
Yes, Hot Shots. Part deux.
So
but yeah, no, I think it's a testament to just kind of where I'm at in life in terms of being on your purpose. You're the same way. Right? It's not that relationships or dating isn't important. We can totally go on that subject, but it's just where's your mind at right now?
Right.
What's driving you?
Right.
So.
Thank you, brother. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thanks for tuning in. If you want to get in touch with Brendan, here's his cell phone number. It's no, I'm kidding.
I totally was about to give it.
That's great. You'll have everyone hitting you up.
For sure.
No, I appreciate you tuning in. We'll catch up with you on the next episode. Take care.
Thanks, guys.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Dude, I thought that went really well. Sorry if I talked too much.
No, it's all good.
I can get to.
And we're still recording. Here.
Oh.
What's up?
What up?